balance enjoying what happened last year versus kind of turning the page now that it's going to change?
My message is that very proud of what we accomplished last year. There were a lot of incredible moments for us as a team and this franchise, and it's over. And we had our moments, our chance to enjoy it through the off season, through that whole process, and rightly so. And now it's about we have a lot of things to improve upon, and I know I'm fixated on that, and I'm pretty confident that the conversations that we've had in the clubhouse, those people from Tory on down are fixated on that as well. And I appreciate that because we didn't accomplish the goal that we set out to accomplish.
What are some of the things you need to be?
We won 84 games last year. I mean, we were the last team into the playoffs. That's not really a sustainable position to put the team in terms of wanting to get to the playoffs every year. You know, we got in day or two left in the season. That's not a position I want to be in moving forward. We were the last team in. We only won 84 games. I mean that's and the way we played for the first 3 months of the season, I think we're better than that as a team, frankly. So we're looking to build on all those reasons, ways. Some of that was depth and roster, and clearly my responsibility. And I'm very much aware of the things that I need to do to improve in those areas, and we'll continue to focus on that. And I think from Tory and I talking and the coaches that, you know, from an execution standpoint, everybody has the opportunity to improve and be better than they were, no matter how good of a season they had last year. And I think that's the message. Tory's talked about that standard. We've talked about holding that standard in a place that is worthy of being a perennial playoff contender. And I think that's where we're going to shoot for, year in and year out.
Mike, there were reports that you were still perhaps looking to pick up a right-handed hitting outfielder. Is that an area that you are still looking for?
Yes. I don't have anything to report on that, but yes, there's still players in the market, and Ken has still told me to continue to improve the team any way that we can. Within the bounds that we kind of have, and so we're still out there actively trying to do that.
Since you guys won the pennant last year, obviously expectations are higher, nationally.
Yep.
You feel you guys embrace those, or can it be a burden if you allow it to be?
We have to embrace them. I mean, that's part of being. You want to be a good franchise, you want to be a good organization, you want to be a perennial playoff contender. Then the expectation is that you're going to go out and be able to play a quality brand of baseball for 162 games and beat some of the teams that we know how strong they are, both in the American and National League. And that's just the reality that if you want to be a good team, that you have to deal with that. And it's not, you have to be able to embrace it. If you don't embrace it, you're not going to be successful.
What's your initial impression of Eduardo Rodriguez so far in camp?
I haven't seen anything. I'm not really watching, if I'm being honest with you. You think I'm watching, you take pictures of me watching. I'm not really watching anything. I'm busy talking to these guys. I probably won't start paying attention to what I'm looking at for another couple of weeks, but he looks great. We're very fortunate to have him here. You know, in the free agent process, there's always there's suitors all over the place. There's 29 other teams that are competitive, and you know, I'm glad that he's here. We needed to shore up our rotation. Looking back from my standpoint on where I fell short last year, that was certainly going into bullpen games in games 4 of the CS and the World Series were a problem. And that's something that we're looking to rectify going into this year.
What stood out about Sean Larkin as you guys would walk us through that interview process?
Tory and I had a relationship with him back as a player in Cleveland, so we knew all about him as a person. The energy is incredible. Certainly, we lost an incredible employee to a great promotion, and Josh did a great job here, and we're very fortunate to have him here for as long as we did. And now he's moving up in his career, which is exactly what we want for people that are here. So he's filling some big shoes, but he's got an energy about him and a smarts, and he worked for what I believe to be probably the best run organization in baseball. And so those are all the intriguing things for us. And he's hit the ground running, and he's got a lot to learn in the next 30, 45 days for all the new faces he's got, but he's doing a great job so far. Not overly high right now, honestly. Everybody, you know, this is the time where you're kind of picking up some of the, you know, end of the throwing program through the off season, you know, getting ready to ramp it up to full speed as we get closer into the games. I'm not overly concerned right now.
What about for just the amount of extra work that some of your guys had, whether or less
Yeah.
rest in the off season? Is there nothing really?
I don't know. When we were in Boston all those years, like we used to talk about it when it was like back to back to back, like, 7, 8 runs deep into the World Series, playing deep into October. I don't have the answer for that. Yes, it always gives me concern, but I'm fairly, I can be reactive in this area at times. I think these guys take good care of themselves. I think we're smart about how we use them. I think we're going to be very cognizant and smart about how they are used into spring training. But they want to go out and compete, and they feel good. And so, I think Zach specifically talked about like continuing to throw through the off season, and he says he feels the best he ever has. And so I think that's a huge positive in terms of where he's at mentally and physically. So it's always a concern of mine, but I mean, whether we played in November or not is you could ask me that same question and I have the same concern. It's just how we're kind of wired from a health standpoint there. But we'll be very mindful of what the usage is as we get into spring training, being ready for opening day. I don't know. Probably, we're not anything specific that we've had conversations on, but there's a fine line between, wanting to take care physically and doing the right thing that we don't exactly have the answer for. So we're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit. We're using our best intelligence that we have and having these guys ready to go out and compete so that what's opening day, March 28th? When March 28th hits, we're ready to go play, because last year came down to one game. And opening day could be that one game. We'll forget about it at the end of September, but it could be. And we need to be ready to play on opening day.
It seems like over the years you guys have had maybe a little bit more success on the position player side than the pitching side in terms of player development. What do you feel like Kyle Driscoll will bring into his role? And have you guys made any changes structurally or kind of anything about how you're approaching the pitching side?
Yeah, I'd probably argue with you a little bit on your supposition about what we've done from a pitching development standpoint. Number one, for me in the game, it's the hardest thing to do across 30 teams. So I think you would levy that criticism to almost every other team in baseball too, and it would be a fair criticism minus one or two teams. I think it's challenging for young starting pitching to come up in this game today with the intelligence and the information and the strength that the hitters today have, and be successful in that role, because absorbing 5 to 6 innings a night. And I think we have a crop of young pitchers that are getting ready to come into our rotation. So we haven't really adjusted a lot structurally. We think Kyle's going to do a great job in that role. Again, losing Barry, we've lost a number of really good employees this offseason, rightly so. I think this is what happens when you have a successful season, and much deserved for those guys to take that next step. And we think Kyle's going to fit right into the program that we have and do a great job.
Kind of bouncing off Jesse's question, we've had lots of conversations in the past about converting starters to relievers and back and forth. And obviously there's been a few examples where that might not have worked out so well. Do you have any renewed thoughts on that particular issue?
I mean, the only thing that I feel fairly strongly about is I don't like taking a guy, putting him in the pen, and then asking him to go back and start in the same season. Other than that, I think you're going to continue to see some of the guys that get to our upper levels that are going to be starting, stretched out, making and moving into our bullpen, because they have good arms, they have great stuff, and if they're one of the 13 best pitchers, we're not going to just be stubborn to, well, they have to stay in Reno and be in the rotation. I think we have enough depth at this point that when that opportunity comes for that guy to be one of the 13 best pitchers, that they'll get that opportunity at the major league level, even if it's in the pen. I think any major league experience, pitching-wise, is beneficial for young pitchers, whether it's in the...
We should expect that to be more of a one-way street, like once you move to the pen.
Yeah, for the most part, that's what we try to stay stubborn to when we do those things. But it's, it's not always going to be perfect, but that's the thing we talk about the most, yes.
What's the criteria for Jordan Lawler to make this team? Does he have to have a role where he's going to get significant?
Yeah, there's got to be a role. I mean, I think his performance last year he did a good job defensively for sure. I think from an at-bat standpoint, I think there's still some growth that needs to happen. But he's gonna figure that out pretty quickly, and he's gonna come out here and compete. And we need to have him he's too good of a player to not be playing. He needs to play. And that might be with us, and it might not be. But we think he's going to have the chance to be a stud in this league for a long time, and part of what we're going to be as an organization today and moving forward. And, we'll see how spring training goes.
With your big free agent moves, you obviously didn't attack the bullpen.
Yeah.
You just went into the decision to mostly hold Pat there outside of a few small moves.
Yes, we did make that decision. I think where we felt like we lost all of our free agents was in the lineup for the most part, and I've already talked about my feelings on where we saw like the rotation and what last year. So we spent a significant amount of our resources in both of those areas to do it. We have a lot of the balance for us in going and getting established reliever versus taking some of these young arms and giving them opportunity to come up into our pen. That's kind of a balance we had. And the back end of our bullpen from the closer on down, which was something that we hadn't solved in years past, but we did last deadline, and where Ginkel solidified, and Thompson, and our lefties, et cetera, Castro, McGuff coming back, we felt like that was more of a strategic play for us. Certainly we want to continue to build out that area because we know the bullpen that we have today probably don't have 3 weeks from now. Once we get into the season, we will through spring training, I'm hopeful, but April-wise, and that's just the nature of the bullpen sometimes and dealing with the volume and the injuries and things like that. So, yeah, that was a choice we made, utilizing the majority, if not all, of our resources in those areas. We still have guys, NRIs, that could have a chance to come in and take some opportunities. And frankly, I'm looking for guys like Justin Martinez to come up and harness 100 plus with wipeout secondary stuff and getting into that mix at some point too. And, we got to give some of those opportunities sometimes to see what they can actually do. If we close the door on Kevin Ginkel, if we close the door on Andrew Saalfrank, we never would have seen what we saw in the playoffs last year. So I think there's a fine line with that. Heads up, everybody. It's a very dangerous spot to be in. Having veteran players in a lot of those spots is of value for sure. But there's a balance that we have to strike.
Was last year a learning experience on that front, the way that you guys were able to get contributions from a waiver claim, system?
No, we've been doing that. We just hadn't done it to success. The closer, yes. Learning experience, yes. I feel like getting the closer at the deadline made a significant impact, if not the largest impact on last year's team.
What do you feel like Corbin Martin could potentially give you guys coming off of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that he's going to – I think last year he was moving towards making our team until he got hurt, and that was unfortunate. And, he hasn't pitched in a year, so I don't really know yet. We'll see how it goes. We're going to be smart with how he's used. He's obviously coming off a significant injury, so we want to make sure that we're getting him at his best for as long as possible. Don't want to see any other types of setbacks. So he's got a good arm, and I don't think we've seen it quite yet, but I think we're going to in the future. You'll see it obviously in spring training this year.
So you'll stretch him out this spring, maybe, or just limit that?
I don't know that we'll stretch him out as a starter. Will he get multiple innings? That would be the goal of stretching him out. Yes, I don't think we're going to see him as a starter now.
Will Bryce Jarvis get stretched out as a
Yes. You're going to see the majority of that group of arms all getting stretched out. Ciccone, Jarvis, Walston, Nelly, Tommy, Human, and I'm probably forgetting people. That group of guys are all going to get stretched out.
Is there anybody getting a look in the rotation that maybe had been
That's a tough question. Put me on the spot here. I don't think so, but I'd have to think about that. I don't think so.
What's your difference in feeling from a year ago as far as confidence, his comfort level compared to a year ago at this time?
It's a good question. I don't know that it's that much different, that I have a different level of confidence in the players, the coaches, our manager, who's I think one of the best managers in baseball. None of that's really changed. Where I do have a slight different perspective is watching, and I brought this, and it's just a very small example, but watching Alec Thomas hit a home run off of Craig Kimbrell in a moment like that, that's a real thing in this game, of being able to, in that moment, as a young player, slow a game down against one of the best closers in baseball, certainly one of the best closers in baseball over the last 10, 15 years. Like, that, to do that in that environment, you never know that's in there. until you get to see it. Like, we can all hope that it happens, and we see some of these young guys come up, and that, all right, when they do get in that environment, Corbin Carroll is going to hit a home run in the third inning when we're getting dominated by the Brewers and completely transform that game for us. And then the series, you hope that happens, and you'd be lying if you knew that it was all going to happen in those moments, because it doesn't always do that. And that's something that I've reflected on a lot during the off season, which is we have guys that did that in those moments, and it's the hardest thing to do in sports. And so that confidence feels good to know that that's in our clubhouse. And it's not just one person. Like, we had multiple guys. I mean, the playoffs that Moreno had, Kevin Ginkel was the best relief pitcher in baseball in the playoffs. Like, what Fott did coming down 2-0 to Philly after losing 10-0, right? That game that he had against the Phillies at home that completely changed, or at least reset us in that series. That was all done by young kids, and those kids are all still here. So.
What does an even improved season for Corbin Carroll look like?
I have no idea. I don't know. You know, last year was not the expectation. What he's done is not the expectation. I've said that a million times. Like, young players in this league don't do that. It's a tiny minority of players that step into and do what he did. So I don't know what's next. I do know this: he was here all off season. On the heels of that season, like 2 days before Christmas, here all off season in this building, that I would come down at 2:00 in the afternoon and he's the only guy in the gym. That, to me, that's something to me that translates into year-over-year performance for a player. And he's certainly talented, so that's not of any debate. But I think that, to me, is a separator at this level, and we see that on a daily basis. So I don't know what the next step is. I really don't.
The fans and media love to judge trades and exchange and pickups in the moment. The reality is it takes time. Is there a move that you made years ago that you're real proud of right now? Do you want us to know about?
That is a tough question, man. Let me think for 1 second. Yeah, I'd probably say Taiwan and Cattell, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't. I mean, I was 3 weeks onto the job, 4 weeks onto the job when I did that, and I don't really know. When I think back to it, I don't really think I knew what I was doing at the time. And so I'm proud of the fact that we, in that short a time, I think that was a good trade for both teams, but it certainly worked out for us in a lot of ways. And obviously the Mariners got very good players too, but it was, I mean, Cattell, somebody that we didn't really ever have in our system, or what we could ever have now had we not made that trade. And so that's something I look back on. Maybe I got lucky. I don't know. But I definitely didn't know what I was doing. I can tell you that.